What's up, psychedelic investors? My name's James, and you're watching The Psychedelic Investor, your number one news source for psychedelic stocks. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to be looking at the 4 most important financial stats for each of the 10 top companies in the psychedelic medicines world, determined by market cap. So first, we're going to look at the market cap, because that tells us how valuable a company is, and it tells us how easily a company can raise capital. So running clinical trials and hiring the best scientific minds in the world is, shock upon shocks, expensive. So without a high market cap, companies will not be able to raise the huge amounts of funds necessary to fund their projects. Second, we are going to be looking at how much cash on hand each of these companies have, which is of course important because it tells us how much the company has in the bank, and from this we can extrapolate for how long the company can continue to survive at given spending rates without having to raise more capital. In that same vein, the third thing we're going to be looking at is how much each company is spending or how much they are currently losing. And though obviously equally important is how the company is spending their money, by looking at the raw amount of money being spent, we can get a rough idea when comparing these different companies, who is doing the most work, who's doing the most different clinical trials, and who is hiring the best scientific advisors, and we can just kind of judge this by how much money each company is spending. And finally, we're going to take a look at revenue where applicable. So most companies in this field are actually still pre-revenue, which is all right. They will be for the foreseeable future, and that's okay. They're in the research and development phase. We should expect them to be pre-revenue, but some companies actually do have a little hair of revenue, so we'll take a look at that where applicable. If you guys enjoy this episode, you already know what to do. Like, subscribe, show the video to your dog because he is a good boy. And yeah, hit that notifications bell, comment down below, all of that good stuff. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Alrighty guys, so I made this little chart. I will throw that up on the screen for you guys. And as you can see, I just listed the top 10 companies on the market right now as judged by market cap. And then I also put their cash on hand and their net loss for the last quarter and their revenue. Like I said in the beginning, all money is in American dollars. And unless otherwise stated, the figures are all from Q2 of this year. A few of them haven't released their Q2 financials yet, so you'll see there that the numbers are from the first quarter instead of the second quarter. So let's start with the big boys of this industry, which are of course Atai Life Sciences, Compass Pathways, and MindMed. So Atai, which is ticker symbol Atai on the NASDAQ, they have the largest market cap. They've got a market cap of $2.4 billion. It kind of boggles the mind to think about how much money that really is. So if ever they need to raise capital, they can do it fairly easily. So just as a little bit of an example, let's say they wanted to raise $240 million. That is a lot of money. They could do this by diluting their shares by 10%, and then all of a sudden they've got $240 million that they can use to fund their different projects. So that is a lot of money. However, if you take a look here at their cash on hand, they're probably not going to have to dilute anytime soon. And that is because they have a whopping $453.6 million in the bank. That is a near unfathomable amount of money. They have enough money to fund all of their projects for the foreseeable future. If we look at how much money they actually lost in the last quarter, it was $48.5 million. So we can see that they have roughly enough for 10 quarters, a little bit less than 10 quarters, let's call it 9 or 8. So yeah, they have enough money to fund their like 10 plus different projects that they're working on because they have so much money in the bank, and if they need to, they can raise more money very easily because of their high market cap. Finally, we're going to take a look at their revenue, which is a little bit misleading because they had $19.9 million of revenue in the first half of 2021. So let's just call that 9.95 in each quarter. But this isn't revenue that is going to be recurring because this is coming from their deal with Otsuka, which is a Japanese pharmaceutical company. And basically, they gave them $20 million or $19.9 million for the rights to use one of their drugs in Japan. So we see some revenue in this quarter, but this isn't recurring, and we shouldn't really expect them to be making $10 million in revenue every quarter like they did here. This is just kind of a one-off thing. So all in all, no surprise, very strong financials for Atai Life Sciences, which we would expect being as they are, in many respects, depending on how you look at it, the strongest company in this field. Moving on, next up we're going to look at Compass Pathways, and just as a little bit of an aside, Atai Life Sciences actually owns almost 20% of Compass Pathways, for those of you that didn't know. Compass is, of course, ticker symbol CMPS on the NASDAQ exchange. Their market cap is a little bit less, almost like half of Atai Life Sciences, but still very respectable, or a little bit more than half, excuse me. Their market cap is $1.3 billion, which is still a lot of money, and they have $316 million in the bank. So same type of thing, if they were to dilute by 10% their stocks, they could get $130 million more, which is a lot of money, and it is a lot more than they are currently spending. In the last quarter, they spent $17.5 million. So we can see very rough math. I probably should have done this before, but whatever, YOLO. We can see that they've got enough for like 20 quarters almost, if they keep spending at the same rate as they currently are doing. And they, of course, had zero revenue in the quarter, which is normal, and most of the companies we have are going to have zero revenue in the quarter. So yeah, just by looking at the base most important financial statistics, we can see that Compass Pathways is in a very good position. They have so much cash in the bank, although a little bit less than Atai Life Sciences. They've got a great market cap, and they're not spending that much money, actually. I would actually expect this number here to increase substantially as they scale. So we know that they finished a 2B trial recently. They're going to get into a phase 3 trial, presumably, very soon. So that's going to take a lot of money. They also are starting to look at treating other issues with COMP360, such as anorexia and other issues. So if they start running clinical trials for that, obviously their revenue is going to continue, or sorry, not the revenue, the amount of money they're spending is going to continue to increase. Moving on to number 3 here, which is my favorite company in the field, which is MindMed, and on the NASDAQ, they are MNMD. So their market cap has actually fallen a little bit at the time of recording here. They've dipped down below $1 billion. They're at about $940 million, 941, excuse me. And yeah, they just dipped because their stock price has been falling a little bit recently, not due to anything substantive, just based on speculation, yada, yada, yada. For the cash on hand that they have $157 million, and they are spending, or in the last quarter rather, they spent $36 million, although this was inflated a little bit by the compensation package for the outgoing CEO, J.R. Ron. I can't remember off the top of my head how much they gave him, but I think it's around $30 million, so that's a one-time, sorry, back up, $6 million, not $30 million. I hope nobody paused the video there and was like, they gave him $30 million. No, I think it's around $6 million. So if you take that out, the net loss would be around $30 million, which is a lot of money. Like, you can see that they're spending like almost double of what Compass Pathways is spending. Compass has a lot more money than them. And because they only have $157 million in the bank, they are going to have to re-up pretty soon. They're going to have to raise some capital pretty soon, in like a year or so, or before a year, if they continue to spending at the rate that they're currently spending at. And again, they have $0 in revenue. So yeah, when we're looking at their market cap, we can see that they can dilute for a decent amount. If they dilute for 10%, they can get around $100 million or $94 million, which is a significant amount of money. But that's still only about, it would take them about 3 months or 3 quarters, excuse me, to burn through. So I'm a little bit hesitant there. Of the 3 big boys, they're definitely in the weakest financial position, but they're still head and shoulders above everybody else, who we will get into in a moment. So the next largest company, as you can see on the chart here, is Cybin, and they have a market cap of $301 million, or I guess if you round up, $302 million. They've got $43.52 million in the bank, and they lost around $11.61 million in the last quarter. So already we can see that they have about enough for 4 quarters, a little bit less than for 4 quarters. So Cybin also is going to have to re-up pretty soon. But even though they're not in quite the same league when it comes to market cap as Atai, Compass, and MindMed, they still have a respectable market cap of over $300 million. Of course, they have no revenue. But you can, again, just by looking at this chart with no other factors, you can see how much of a gap there is between the top 3 big players and Cybin. And as we go down this list, it's only going to get more and more extreme as the amount of cash on hand, market cap, and the amount that they're spending continues to drop. So we're going to see a really big drop here next as we look at Numinous, and that, if you look at their market cap here, you can see it's $142.69 million, which is less than half of what Cybin's is. And they have about the same amount of cash on hand, so I guess props to Numinous. They have $49.92 million, and they spent a lot less than Cybin did. They only spent $3.81 million. So if we just round that up to 4, we can see that they have enough for more than 10 quarters spending at the current rate. So it looks like Numinous actually is in a very solid financial position here. They have enough to keep going, and I'm assuming they're going to escalate their they're going to escalate the amount they're spending. They have 2 compassionate access trials that are set to begin very soon, one treating PTSD with MDMA, and that is in conjunction with MAPS, and the other is treating PTSD with psilocybin. Now, as I said, probably going to see them increase their spending in the near future, but still in a very, very, very strong position. And something that is a little bit interesting here, if you look at the last column here, you'll see that they actually didn't have 0 for revenue. They had $440-ish thousand, which isn't nothing, but it's still kind of small. It's like 10% of what they're spending, a little bit more than 10%, like 12, 13% of what they're spending. So something to keep an eye on Numinous in the near future will be if they can scale that revenue. And they're getting a lot of this revenue through doing tests in their laboratory out in BC, and some other stuff such as supplying psilocybin to other people that want to do clinical tests themselves. So again, it's just going to be very interesting watching that revenue number. If that can grow and eat up a larger part of their total loss, then we will basically see them being one of the first companies to be able to partially fund themselves as they're working through their different trials. They're not going to have to continuously raise capital and dilute their stock. Though again, they're only sitting at about 10% of what they're spending is how much they have earned in revenue. So it is a very small amount at this time, but it is interesting to see. So just keep that in mind. Moving on, next up we have Revive Therapeutics, who has a market cap of $102 million. For the amount of cash on hand that the company has, it's around $19.02 million. So again, you can see another huge drop there. Numinous had $49 million cash on hand, and as we move down this list, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Revive only has $19 million, and this is, as you can see on the chart, Q1 numbers, so maybe that changed a little bit since Q1, but in Q1 they had $19 million, and they spent $3.37 million. So because they're not spending much, they have enough for about 6 quarters at the current rate of spending, and again, they have $0 in revenue. Going on to Small Pharma, which is actually one of my favorite dark horse players in this industry. They're working with DMT, treating addiction. So they have a $100 million market cap, and they have $41 million in the bank, so a significant amount of money to fund their trials. They're only spending about $4 million a quarter, and again, these are Q1 numbers, by the way. So they have enough for about 10 different quarters at the current rate, although again, they're going to ramp up their spending as their clinical trials start. They have 0 revenue, again, to be expected. So the main takeaway I want you guys to be getting here is just how, as we move down, the amount of capital that these companies both have and have access to raising is getting smaller and smaller. So we're going to continue down the rest of the list in a moment, but just I want you guys to understand when you're making your investments into these companies that lots of companies are going to say fantastic things on their website, in their interviews, when they're talking to people. But at the end of the day, they need the money to fund their trials. They need their money to pay their top scientists in the world. And as we see, as we get smaller and smaller, they just don't have it. So moving on, we have Medicine, who has $97 million as their market cap, which again, close to $100 million, ain't too shabby, but still, they have $5.5 million in the bank, except they kind of spent $3 million in the last quarter, so they don't even have enough money in the bank for the next 2 quarters, so that obviously is not a great position to be in, and because their market cap is under $100 million, it's going to be a little difficult for them to raise this capital. So if they dilute by, let's say, 10%, let's raise their market cap up to $100 million just for ease of calculation. If they dilute by 10%, they're only going to get $10 million, which isn't going to even see them through another 2 quarters. So again, this isn't everything, and this is a very surface level, calculation. But I would just keep in mind that they may have trouble raising capital in the near future, just based on these numbers. Yeah, and as we go down, the last company we're going to look at here is Light Holland, whose market cap is only $68.85 million. So not a very large market cap at all, so it's going to be hard to raise capital in the future. And they have $24 million in the bank, which I guess is pretty good. That's better than Midison has. And they're not spending that much money at the moment either, so they can survive for the near future. They're only spending $630K. Or they only spent $630K, excuse me, and again, these are Q1 numbers because we don't have the Q2 numbers yet. So they will be able to, and this is going to be another terrible math that I am doing just on the fly here, guys. So yeah, just, how do you say that? Just bear with me, exactly. Bear with me here, guys. So let's round down their numbers. They spent $600,000 to get to 24. That would be 8. So they have enough for about 8 quarters. Is that right? No, that's not right, because if they had $1 million, they would have enough for 24 quarters. So you know what, guys? I'm not even going to try to do this math in my head right now. I'm just going to throw up the number on the screen right now. But yeah, they have enough for a solid amount of quarters, more than 30 quarters at the current rate of spending. Though again, as they expand operations, I know they want to get into Brazil, other places with their microdose pack, they will continue to increase the amount they're spending. Now, having said that, Light Holland is one of the 2 companies on this list that actually have a little bit of revenue, which makes sense because they're selling stuff right now. They're selling their microdose packs. They only have $70,000 in revenue, however, again, Q1 numbers, which is about 10% of the amount of money they spent. So we would really hope to see that number get boosted up a little bit. I know that a lot of people give me a little bit of hate because I don't like Light Holland that much, just because I don't think that the proper way to go is through the recreational market. I think we should be focused 100% on medical applications, whereas Light Holland is more focused on the recreational market, which is okay. I'm not even saying they're a bad company. I'm just saying I personally don't like them. And to be clear, guys, I'm not an oracle. I don't have a crystal ball. I could be totally wrong about my opinion on Light Holland. I'm just giving you my own opinion. But I do think that with such a small market cap, they're going to have trouble raising capital in the future. Although, again, they're not spending much money, so they can just continue doing what they're doing for now. And hopefully, as they get more coverage, their market cap will get up a little bit. So again, yeah, we got through the top 10 companies by market cap here. We looked at their market cap, cash on hand, their net loss, the amount of revenue they're having. And I hope that you can have a better idea of which companies are winning the race right now. So we always talk about, when talking about which companies to invest in the psychedelic medicine space, how there are 2 things you should look at: the progress they're making on their science, so their clinical trials, and then also how much money they have. And unfortunately, it's a little bit of a catch-22, because you can't really run these scientific trials until you have the money, but then it's hard to get the money unless you have scientific data to point towards to show that you're doing these amazing things. So it's harder for these companies that weren't in the initial rush, like MindMed, Compass, and Atai, that got all this money up front. But yeah, it is what it is. It kind of sucks sometimes to see that. And again, I'm not hating on any of these companies that don't have that much money in the bank or that don't have that high of a market cap. Things can change. This is just kind of a snapshot of where we are in this moment. Who knows, in a few quarters we could be looking at a completely different picture. Specifically, I think that Cybin, Numinous, small pharma, maybe even Midison could start raising a lot more capital. I do expect all of their market caps to go up a little bit, although not financial advice. Again, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm kind of rambling now, guys. Just the point of this video was I wanted to give you a tool to be able to compare and contrast how much money these different companies have, which I think I have done in this little bit of a rambling episode. I'm not really sure if you guys are going to enjoy this. I didn't have a script for this episode. I'm kind of just talking right now. I literally don't know this next sentence that is going to come out of my mouth before I say it. But if you guys enjoy it, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share it with your mom, share it with your dog, and yeah, all that good stuff. I will see you guys soon. I'm actually taking a little bit of a vacation, so this video was recorded in advance, so it's possible that some of these market caps will have changed a little bit by the time that I actually get this video published, but I don't think they're gonna change that much, and this is just to give you guys a rough idea anyhow. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later. Peace, guys.